Marchand, Chairman.
Sheila Cleveland, Nisbellam District Councilman, thank you for being there.
Willie Warmer, Nisbellam District.
Edwin Marchand, Womack District.
Good morning, Rich Tenasket from that district.
Thank you. Introduce yourself, Chairman.
You can't hear you.
Introduction.
My name is Chaz Williams, from the Nez tribe, Nez Wenatchee Palouse tribe. Coming here in support of, my friend here.
Rain Bear stands last, and our Chief of Staff for Chief Stan Greer from the County Nation of the Blackfoot Confederacy.
My name is Sawyer Red Thunder from here in Nisbellam.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I forgot a prayer. I really want to say a prayer for the morning.
Thank you, Creator, for bringing us all together here today. And prayers for the people at Standing Rock, and prayers for the people that will be heading over to Standing Rock. I understand there's some heading over this Friday from here too. And prayers to all our elders, our children, to be safe this weekend during Halloween. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So grizzly bears, huh?
Grizzly bears, would you like me to sit or stand or
Yeah,
answer the phone? That's right.
You can come and sit if you want, or stand if you want.
I'd rather sit. Standing seems a little bit.
Okay, that's where we put the spotlight, right
That's
there.
right. Well, I'm hoping Ricky's got my good side. That's and the older I get, the worse my sides become. So I have a statement from our chief, but I'll just share a few words about this issue. And my elders here asked me to speak before they say something. And first of all, you mentioned Standing Rock. And my friend, Dave Ashenbaugh, chairman over there, he was one of the first elected tribal leaders to support this issue and to oppose what the federal government is wanting to do here and the states are wanting to do. So, you know, Dave wrote letters and they passed resolutions and things like that. And since that time, in the south of the border, there's over 50 nations have passed resolutions and made declarations on this issue. North of the border, there's even more First Nations than that. And before going any farther, I want to express that this is not a document that's anything to do with the white man's law. You know, it's not a legal document like that. This is in a tribal document, kind of a cross-border agreement, statement of solidarity, you know, between the various peoples. This issue under, you know, in their Blackfoot culture, Cheyenne culture, others, you're not even supposed to say the name of this being because it's so revered. So in a Blackfoot, you call it a Buxaku. In the Cheyenne, you call it Batsnachka. I know the Lakotas call it Matohuta. You know, many names. But if you look at what those names really mean, it means the sacred. It speaks to the sacred nature of this being. Because in the origin explanation, you know, for the Cheyenne, similar to the Blackfoot people, this one was the first two-legged set foot upon the earth. This is the one that gave us the breath of life. This is the one that is integral to the thunder pipes, most sacred bundles. Now, we're up against the gun literally, like this one is, because of the timing. The federal government intends to try and push through the removal of protections of this sacred being in Greater Yellowstone by the end of November, if they can do it, certainly by the end of the year. We've been involved in this struggle for quite a long time now, and this is, you know, one of our last plays to try and halt it, slow the train down, as it were. And when I say we're up against the gun, if the protections are taken away from this sacred being in the Greater Yellowstone region, they're gonna be handed over to Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. First thing that they're gonna do is open trophy hunts. That's central to what their quote-unquote management plans are. Now, for the Blackfoot people and others, this is an ancestor. This is like a grandparent. So the idea that these rich white guys are going to come onto our ancestral lands where there are many, many sacred sites, which we'll get to in a few minutes' time, and they're going to kill them just for the sake of killing. You know, we've had criticism from people, well, y'all are, you know, you guys are anti-hunting. We're not anti-hunting. We are hunters. Everybody in this room, you know, we come from a hunting tradition, but we're subsistence hunters. And we go hunting, you know, this great ceremony too. This is what we were taught. This is why old people, you know, refer to them as relatives. You have to have ceremony before you go out. You have to free this one spirit that's going to give of itself to sustain you. You know, and there's a reason why they said these are your relatives, because they wanted you to think about that. Taking a life, you know, taking a life is not something to be done lightly. But these people want to come in here and kill our relative, this sacred being, just for fun, for what they're calling sport. Well, you know, what I call sport is football or baseball. Not killing the sacred being like this. Now, when those protections are removed and they begin this, you think about that, you know, they're calling that management. They're calling killing management. But, you know, I've asked them, how do you manage the sacred? How do you do that? I don't know how you do that, because to me, you know, the sacred, you revere the sacred. You stand humbled and in awe of the sacred. It's not about killing. Now, when they remove the protections from this being, they're also going to remove protections from the lands around Greater Yellowstone. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has already conceded in their documentation that they have 28 mines that are ready either to be developed or become operational within Greater Yellowstone. Now, when you remove the protections from the land, it's not just extractive industries. It's going to be other industries that are going to move into that area. This is where I brought up the sacred sites, because like the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Confederated Colville tribes are recognized by the federal government as associated tribes of Yellowstone. So I know of their Blackfoot Confederacy sacred and historic sites in that area. I'm sure your people have sacred and historic sites in that area. The minute you open an area up to extractive industries, you know what the next thing happens, precisely what's happening up there at Sandy Rock and Cannonball. And see, there's been no enactment of NEPA. The Tribal Historic Preservation Offices have not been brought into this to be able to survey, be able to catalog, so that these sites can be protected. Because that entire area is a matrix of sacred sites. Now, this entire issue involves many of the issues that we struggle over, that our ancestors tried to leave some foundation for us. So this is about our sovereignty. Because what the feds want to happen is that tribes will adopt these state plans. Well, this is like a Trojan horse. If you're going to adopt a plan that's predominantly written by a state, you know what's going to be the next thing that's going to happen. So this involves our religious and spiritual freedoms, because of course this one is integral to our culture and our ceremonies. The idea that you're going to just go out and blow it away for fun, think of what that impact is going to be. You know, I know people in traditional societies who, the very prospect of it, they can hardly speak of it because of what it means to them. It's a violation of our treaty rights, obviously, and it's an abrogation of our mandated consultation protocols too. Because from President Clinton's Executive Order 13175 that said consultation has to be meaningful and pre-decisional. This has not happened. Not just with us, but not with anybody. The only things that's happened is the government held a webinar. Well, a webinar is not government-to-government consultation, and everybody boycotted it. And then they held 2 meetings, invited people to go to a motel, one in Bozeman, one in Rapid City, and nobody went to the one in Rapid City. And I know the 3 people who went to the one in Bozeman. And after that, the Confederated Salish Kootenai tribes who attended that meeting said, we don't want anything to do with this, and they issued their own resolutions and everything against that. Now, the other part of this, which is not a surprise, is the malfeasance that's involved in this. We need to recognize that before Lewis and Clark stumbled across here and was helped to the Pacific by all different people, it's estimated that there was over 100,000 of these beings between the Missouri River and the Pacific coast. Today, there are fewer than 2,000 in the lower 48. In Alberta, they're at the lowest ever, fewer than 700. So we have 2 areas where they are right now, ostensibly Greater Yellowstone and the Crown of the Continent, up by the Blackfoot Confederacy country. And you have a handful in the Cascades for however long they're gonna last. These are all genetically isolated. They are basically island populations now. And you know what the ultimate outcome is of an island population. They become extinct. Without connectivity between these 2 groups, that's what the future is, right there. This is also the second, this mammal is the second slowest reproductive rate of any mammal. In Greater Yellowstone, they've lost all of their core foodstuffs. Whitebark pines down 85%, cutthroat trout are nearly vanished from the area with climate change. Army cutworm moths are disappearing rapidly, and then the use of pesticides. So these are just a few of the facts that you put out there. Now, in Greater Yellowstone itself, now there'll be fewer than 700 of these. So when I had a meeting down in their southwest with the Hopi tribe, and this being is incredibly, it's arterial to the Hopi people. Hopi bear clan were the first ones into that area. How come the Hopis came to be there? And the chairman of the Hopi tribe, he looked at me and he said, so let me get this straight then. He said, there's fewer than 2,000 of these. There's fewer than 700 of them in Greater Yellowstone. There used to be 100,000 of them, and the government's calling it a recovery. And I said, well, that's about the size of it. And he said, well, we don't even need to discuss this any further. The leader, the Chickamauga of the Hopi Bear Clan, he came up to Greater Yellowstone because that chief went down there, did a speech, and a number of people signed this treaty down there, different tribes. And he said, this being is integral to our culture. He said, but he himself had never seen one. I'd never seen one because they were extirpated, all from that area. And he spoke about that, and it was powerful because he spoke about a landscape without them. And for us, we refer to this one as being a physical embodiment of the spirit of the earth. So them guys, generation after generation after generation after generation, have grown up in an environment where these are absent, as important as they are to them. And so, I kind of finish up before I read a statement from our chief, and this is a kind of a personal experience. Well, my daughter's only 13 years old now. When she was 4 years old, it was the first time that she ever did see one of these. And we stopped and I showed her. She's just little. So what she took in and what she didn't take in, I have no idea, but ever since that time, whenever she's seen one, I have repeated pretty much exactly what I said to her that day. And what I said to her that day is, you watch everything that this being does. You You watch everything that it eats. You watch the way it walks. You watch